Okay, students, welcome to class today. For this warm up, as we're going into class, I'm going to ask you to identify the different steps of the project um, and talk and list the different order of things that I'm doing. And we'll kind of sort the order. We're in warp speed right now, right? But basically, the first thing you want to do is cut your board, and then you want to work in really, really light pencil work for your different focal areas. So you're kind of figuring out the placement of your board. Are you pressing down really hard right now? No, you're going super light, and everyone should be at the point where they're going light and then going to dark, so you can feel confident with putting marker work in, because it's hard to take back marker, but pencil you can take back. So make sure you're looking at your metaphors and you're working in any sort of details and any sort of imagery that you want on your skateboard. I'm just using a collection of metaphors that I saw on the mood board to try to inspire you guys. Make sure you are thinking about movement and putting in line work that kind of moves the eye around the page. So that's kind of what I'm doing, and I'm repeating the same kind of curvy sort of direction, right? So I'm repeating these curvy lines on purpose. Text is not required, but you can also work in text or layers to kind of just clarify what's expected. Yeah, and then you're slowly kind of working in details. Again, before you do the marker, you want to work in those details so you have confidence with approaching the skateboard design. Also think about repetition. So repeating things like spheres, repeating the same images again and again, repeating triangles, just so it's unified. Once you've done all that repetition, you could go in and you can start to work in lighter values with your marker, like super, super light. And yeah, like it's just kind of like you work in lighter grays to kind of start to get a sense of where you want things to be dark. And by going light to dark, you're kind of slowly making choices. You want to do black at the very end and then slowly work in darker grays. You would call this kind of an underpainting. I'm not using color yet, but I'm kind of figuring out, okay, well, where are my shadows? Where are my details? And thinking about where my light's coming from. If you don't want to worry about light source and things being 3D, don't worry about it. It's not required. And then you slowly work in color. I start with working in yellows and this light green, because yellow is a lighter value. So again, and notice how you should move around the board, because you want the same color throughout the board. So if you're going to have like this green in the top, you need to have this green in the bottom. And that will help to bring everything together and to make everything more cohesive and whole and connected. When you are drawing something like, for example, something that's red, like this flower, remember you want to get all of the versions of that color out of your marker bag, so you are working with different values. Okay, lights and darks, right? So pink is actually a light version of red. So I'm layering light and dark pinks on top of each other on purpose. And that helps to create unity too, like repeating the same colors. Like now I'm layering in different greens on top of each other. And red and green are complementary colors. Remember back to the color wheel, right? So by putting opposites next to each other, hopefully I can get my board to kind of pop out. Yeah, and the problem with text is it takes a long time, right? So, when you're approaching any sort of art project, you have to think, okay, well, how much time do I have, right? And don't bite off more than you could chew. Like simple is fine too. But like risk taking and complexity is something to consider when you're looking at a project rubric. Now I'm working in darker grays and working in details. I am using the thin edge of the marker now. Well, now I'm using the broad, but At the beginning, when you're doing an underpainting, you use the broad tip and then you turn around and you use the thin tip of the marker. So remember, your markers have two tips and you can really use that to your advantage. You're so lucky to have these dual tip markers. Have fun with them and put in those details. Now I'm putting in more details, more work, and kind of like shading in different colors. Contrast, okay? So in order to get the skull to pop out, I'm now putting a hard boundary, a really dark boundary around the edges of the text and around the edges of the skull. Okay, that's really, really important. Save black for the end. Do you have to do a skull? No, but I'm actually following a YouTube video and I'm looking at reference images. So think about different YouTube videos that you can follow when you're deciding to draw stuff. And yeah, good luck. Now we're going to talk about the order of approaching the board in class.